Perfect. Bethany, welcome. Uh, Well, first up was the courthouse asphalt shingle replacement project. This was an insurance job, basically. We were damaged July, I don't know, 14th, 20th of 2020 in a hailstorm and took significant damage to a lot of roofs and a lot of HVAC equipment. So an ongoing effort working with our insurance company and adjusters. That roof was going to be replaced as well as a number of others. Um, and the job has been started and completed. They actually had substantial completion, I want to say, by last Friday, which is actually the due date for it to be substantially completed. Todd Higginbotham from Bailey Edward Design is here. Talk a little bit about that project and some others. But Todd and I met out there this morning and reviewed the work to put together a punch list. But the price tag on the courthouse was estimated from insurance at $334,000 initially. Knickerbocker Roofing Company low bid was $337,400. We actually put together a credit. Some of the metal on the roof was not damaged as bad, so we were able to salvage that metal, particularly on the caps. The valleys were replaced, but the caps we held in place. So we got a credit of about $10,000, almost $11,000. So we're have kind of broken out to the positive on the insurance reimbursement versus the expense for doing the roof. So, Todd, you want to talk a little bit about project and where we're at and what we're doing?
Sure. Thanks, Dana. So as Dana mentioned, the roofer was substantially complete at the end of last week. Dana and I performed a walkthrough this morning, have some punch list items, and while we're putting together the formal certificate of substantial completion, we've shared that list with the roofer, and they've started working on those things. All in all, they've done a good job. They were very responsive, very respectful to the schedule and to the day-to-day work that goes on at the courthouse. And I think everybody was pleased with the cooperation. So we're happy. It was our first experience with Knickerbocker, and we're hopeful that we'll have other opportunities to work with them as well.
Might add that one of the significant pieces was safety for this project, because it's 6 stories up and it's a highly attended on a daily basis building by the public. So they did a wonderful job of ensuring the safety of not only the public but staff going in and out of the building. So and themselves as well. They were very cognizant of safety procedures and protocols. It really was a terrific crew. They did a fantastic job, so very much appreciative of their effort. Next up is a little update on the Brookins Pod 300, 400, which is this building here, as well as the Salt Dome. That bid, which was ITB 2021-07, we bid those out together, and we had some difficulty with the Salt Dome. So we canceled that portion of it and have rebid the Salt Dome, which we'll talk about just in next up in a minute here. But the other issue we had was with our bids came back way over the estimate from the insurance company. So we had to bring back the insurance company adjusters to relook at the roof. This time they took some core samples, so they had a better understanding. They didn't really understand what was underneath the EPDM rubber. With taking the core samples, they figured that out, and they successfully increased their budget allotment to cover the price of the bid, which is also a Knickerbocker low bid at $848,000. So our insurance dollars will be paying for that project in total. two roofs, Pod 300, which we're sitting under right now, and Pod 400, which is the Urbana Park District gym and space, plus our IT folks and GIS are located in Pod 400. Pod 400 will be done this fall, but there is a huge backlog on the ISO board. That's that styrofoam board used as insulation, gives you the R values, protects you from the elements in terms of heat and cold. But a big backlog on that. So the ISO board for Pod 300 we won't get until sometime this winter, we're hoping. So Pod 300 will have to be delayed until the spring, once winter is over. We have notified the insurance company of that. The insurance company gives you 2 years from the date of the initial event, which will be up in July, to get your work done. But we've notified them on a couple of different projects that we've got with them. HVAC projects, which we'll talk about in a little bit, replacement from hail damage, as well as the roofs. That, with all of the delays between COVID, some of the shipping disasters around the world, ports being closed, we are seeing significant delays on a number of materials. It's also driving prices up. If you've tried to do a little construction project around the home, you can definitely tell that the cost of lumber has gone up significantly, as well as other materials for construction. So, Todd, you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing with Brookins?
Sure. So as Dana mentioned, material has been challenging, and so we've been working with Knickerbocker to find a way that we could get some of the work done this fall so that we can complete this portion as early as possible. So Knickerbocker did a lot of searching with their distributors and found a 3-inch thick board in lieu of the 2.5-inch layers that we had originally specified. And so we'll be able to, he's got enough of that so that we can do Pod 400 this fall while we're waiting for the 2 layers of 1.5 inches for Pod 300. So we're going to be, we've just executed contracts. We're waiting for bonds and insurance and the shop drawing process, but we're going to be gearing up here shortly to get that work underway.
Okay. Question?
Can I ask, just for my own understanding, once you have locked in a project, these rates are set, there's no chance that we're going to go up again and have insurance issues? Perfect.
When we bid things out, they've got to hold those prices firm for 60 days. So, I mean, it's shame on us if we can't get a contract signed within 60 days to hold those pricing. But so the pricing is confirmed, but the delivery date, unfortunately, is a problematic for our projects. So. Next up, we'll go to the salt dome. So we rebid the salt dome out, and it's been out on the street for almost 4 weeks. We'll have a bid opening in this room on Friday at 2 o'clock. We're anticipating at least 4 or 5 different bidders bringing bids in. You just never know. We've contacted a number of folks who do the work, and folks have picked up plans and dropped by to take a look at it. So we'll see what we get Friday afternoon. We anticipate being able to get that work done yet this fall before winter sets in. So far, asphalt shingles, they may take 3 to 4 weeks for delivery, but it hasn't taken any longer than that. So we've been pleasantly surprised with that. Again, that is an insurance job, and our insurance company did come out and readjust their number, so we're very hopeful that we'll be within striking distance on that come bid opening on Friday. Todd, you want to kind of go over what we're doing?
Sure. So what we're doing at the Salt Dome is we're replacing damaged shingles and underlayment down to the deck. We're also replacing metal copings where the dome structure meets the concrete base wall. There's some damaged metal there, so we're replacing that too. We have a shed roof that has a single ply EPDM membrane on that that's being replaced, and we're replacing some wood fascia with some composite board that is a maintenance-free material and has been used successfully by the county at the Salt Dome and other locations. So, as Dana mentioned, we've got plan holders. We've reached out to plan rooms throughout the state, who then have subscribers who then share it. So there's a possibility that there may be more. We may get more bids from people that we're not even aware as a part in that system. So I think that although everyone's busy, there's still a lot of interest in projects, and that's why we like to reach out and to these plan rooms so that we can maximize the as much competitive bidding as possible.
Thanks, Todd. Any questions on the Salt Dome? If not, Todd, thank you. Richard, do you want to step up to the table there? So the last two projects are significant. The satellite jail HVAC project, that's replacing the original equipment at the satellite jail, which is located mostly on the roof of the current building. We're also, there are a bunch of DX units. What does that mean? It means they're kind of both air conditioning and heating, and they're not very efficient, so we're putting in chillers for air conditioning. They work great for heaters, but so we putting in new air handlers and chillers, as well as piping for it, trying to reduce the distance that we are moving. In your lines, you're delivering chilled and heated water, basically, and to the air handlers. There's oil in those lines, so that it doesn't freeze during the winter. And they go up and down, and they're very inefficient the way that it was originally built. So we're trying to economize on that, shorten those runs, put everything on the roof, make it much more efficient and easy to use and operate. So pretty strong project. It's $1.8 million project, and GHR Engineering, Richard is here. You want to talk a little bit about that and some of the issues and problems with delivery?
Yeah, as we discussed last month, this project's really going to kind of be a boom for the county, I think, over there at Satellite Jail. One of the number one things about this is there's been ongoing issues with cooling in that space. It's caused lots of issues with downtime, and it can really lead to a lot of complaints coming out of that building. As Dana was kind of alluding to, one of the number one problems with that is all tied to those DX units that are sitting on the roof. With the length of the piping, the oil can't get back to the units, and when that doesn't happen, it ends up creating compressor failures, which is essentially what's happening on that roof. That's why we're having ongoing issues on with the existing equipment. So the number one thing was to go up there, get rid of that, and try to mitigate these complaints that we're having of cooling within that building. So that's going to drive what we're trying to do here. So then we go ahead and we'll put the chillers, boilers on to take care of the heating and cooling, and we'll replace the air handlers to end up being able to use the chilled water and hot water that we're going to then be creating. To do this, we had to put up a brand new penthouse on the roof in order to allow for us to do the switchover from the existing system to the new system with limited downtime. We had to build a penthouse so we could get all these systems up and running prior to doing the switchover. The issue tied to that, as much as Dana's kind of alluded to and Todd had discussed, there's long-term issues with availability and things of that nature out in the world. So as we kind of discussed last month, that project ended up having to be, that was originally scheduled for completion end of November this year. Due to some redesign work that had to be done and things of that nature, we ended up having to push the completion date for that project into next year. As it looks now, in the conversation that we'd had last week during a progress meeting, it appears that Petrie Cooney, who is going to be doing the construction of the penthouse, it looks like they're actually going to be mobilizing next week, with the steel beginning to arrive the week after. So at this point in time, while we did have to push back the completion of the project, it is nice to see that we're going to go ahead and start moving forward on that. At this point in time, it appears that during discussions with them and with the prime contractor, Davis Houck, it appears that we should be able to achieve our new goal of the construction of the penthouse by the end of 2021. That will then allow Davis Houck, who's the mechanical contractor on the project, that'll allow them to get up into the new penthouse, into the space, and get all of their prep work done, the piping, the new systems and everything installed by about the end of February is the timeline we're looking at. Then the goal would be is when the weather breaks from the winter and we start to get more mild temperatures, we can then go up and do those air handler switchovers. Each air handler switchover will take about a month, but we can take advantage of those nice kind of moderate temperatures and get those air handlers switched over. Luckily, in this entire process, the number one reason for this project has been the issue with cooling. The issue has always been tied to those compressor failures and things of that nature. So even though we do have to move back the completion of the project through another season, luckily that season is heating season, which historically we have not had issues with in that building. So we should still be able to complete the project and put a new working system up and running before we reach next cooling season, which is our primary concern. So while it's being pushed, it appears that we are now kind of on the way and things are kind of going well. The only other piece of equipment that we're going to kind of be tied to for delivery times was the air handlers and the chillers and the boilers. At last conversation, the contractor should actually have the boilers in-house already. The chillers are set to be, the air handlers are set to be delivered mid-November, and the chillers are set to be delivered towards the end of November. So equipment should not be an issue. At this point in time, it's really just a matter of time. So like I said, while pushing it back, it does appear that we can deliver a project and deliver it in the time necessary to kind of get that building up and running properly.
Thanks, Richard. Might also mention that we are taking out the regular controls and putting in digital controls with this project. So there'll be some significant savings, as well as it will qualify with the control equipment and digital controls that are being put in with the boilers. It'll qualify for about a $108,000 rebate from Ameren, which will go back towards the overall cost of the project. So look forward to getting that done. We've worked both obviously with Richard and the correction staff, keeping them apprised and involved in the meetings so they understand the timelines and the delays and what's happening and are fully on board. Also working with Tammy, because now that this is a capital asset fund project, it's not being concluded in 21, but there'll be some expenditures from 21. We'll then have to, unfortunately for Tammy, she'll have to adjust the budget in 22. We'll move those funds. It's simple to do, but it does create work for Tammy. So try not to do that for her very often. But she's aware of what's happening and why. So any questions?
Not a question so much as just I appreciate you keeping diligent on this and making sure that there's cool air in time for the hot season. I know the people working there and the people who are housed there will definitely appreciate it too.
Okay, and the last one up is the hail damage HVAC equipment. So back in that July of 2020 storm, we had equipment on this building, Brookins, JDC, and the courthouse that were damaged. Those are mostly coils that move water and air. And when the hail came down, unfortunately, the county did not have hail guards. And part of this project, which is not covered by insurance, but it's about, I want to say it's roughly in the magnitude of about $80,000 to put hail guards on all of the county's HVAC equipment that are on roofs and are exposed. That does not have hail guards, so that cannot happen again. But we'll be replacing those pieces of equipment. It's significant here at Brookins as well as over at JDC. At the courthouse, it's I believe it's one coil on one of the chillers, so they each have two. So, anyway, you want to talk a little bit about that and where we're at?
Much like the discussion for the satellite jail, one of the biggest issues that we've had on this project is just tied to equipment availability. We have some piece of equipment that have already started to come into the contractor. There's other piece of equipment that they have scheduled to get on site later into October, and a few that are scheduled to be here in early November. However, we do have one batch of equipment that is primarily for equipment on top of this building that is not scheduled to be delivered until, I believe, mid-December now. We've had multiple discussions with the contractor, and this appears to be something that we've ran into in multiple projects, and it kind of is happening worldwide. Essentially, when we originally bid the project, the idea was that those lead times to get those pieces of equipment in was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 weeks, because they're kind of just a standard rooftop unit, nothing that it's a piece of equipment that should kind of just come off the shelf. The issue is, though, is much like everything else in the world nowadays, those lead times have ballooned tremendously. In this case, we're being told that the lead times on those could approach 16 weeks, which is a number that for that type of equipment is unheard of. Due to this project is going to have to move on into 2022 as well. Number one, because when we go to replace this rooftop equipment, especially on this roof, you don't want to be taking that equipment down during the middle of winter. You take the equipment down during the middle of winter and you have an issue with replacement, then you could have issue with kind of losing control of your building, and you end up with very, very cold staff. So the intent for the project as of now is for the contractor to take all equipment that they can get on hand and can get replaced by about the end of November to get that equipment done, the replacements done, and get as much stuff completed as they can during the 2021 year. As we get into 2022, the goal would be to, much like on the satellite project, would be to complete the replacement of the equipment that we get later in the year towards probably March or so, early April, depending on when we can have proper temperatures to do that. The contractor has expressed interest in maybe even doing the work earlier if we end up with a rare mild week somewhere within the year. We have expressed to them, however, though, that if they're going to do that, it's going to have to be a time where we have somewhere in the neighborhood of like a week of mild weather. That way, if there is a situation with the switchover, that we have time to correct the situation and get the building back up and running. We've expressed to them that we don't want them coming in just if we get one good 60-degree day because of the concerns that are tied to that. So if necessary, they might just hold on to that piece of equipment and go ahead and do the switchover in, say, March or early April, kind of as we discussed. Once again, we're fairly lucky on this project that none of the damage caused to the equipment by the hail has completely made any of these pieces of equipment inoperable. The buildings are still up, they're still operational. We need to get the equipment replaced, but luckily taking it through another season isn't going to be anything that causes adverse effects to the staff or any of the occupants. So at this time, that's kind of where we're at, and we should be able to still put the project up and running, just take a little bit longer than we'd hope.
Any questions?
Are we putting hail guards on the equipment as we replace them this time? Okay.
We are putting hail guards on all the equipment that does not currently have hail guards. There are a few pieces. I know County Highway's got some. And there's one other building that's got a piece or two. But yes, we are putting them on all of our equipment.
Well, thank you, Richard. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate you coming. Excellent explanation of what we're looking at. Our next meeting will be November 2nd. Thank you, Dana and Dan, for coming here and going through this exercise. At least we've got the information. And everybody else, have a good rest of your evening.